Hello, brethren, ladies, and friends, and welcome to Three Knocks at the Door at Natoma 64, a podcast dedicated to Natoma Lodge 64, located in Folsom, California. Masonic education, Masonic events, and other Masonic bodies in the greater Folsom area. Your hosts are Brother Jeff Joe and Worshipful Brother Noel Lucas. If you'd like to share ideas or have feedback for us, or would like to join our mailing list, please feel free to email us at 3katd64@gmail.com. Today we'll be joined by Worshipful Brother Jairo Gomez, Assistant Grand Lecturer for Division 4 for the Grand Lodge of California. We will keep in mind that our conversations will not violate our obligations and that our opinions in no way reflect any views taken by our lodges or Grand Lodge. We hope you enjoy the show. All right, well, welcome, brethren, ladies, and friends, to Three Knocks at the Door at Natoma 64. I'm Jeff Joe from Natoma Lodge 64, and we have Worshipful Brother Noel Lucas, and our guest today is Worshipful Brother Jairo Gomez, Assistant Grand Lecturer for Division 4 for the Grand Lodge of California, like the intro says. So we'll start off with Worshipful Brother Noel Lucas. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, brothers, for joining us again. Worshipful, I really appreciate you taking time out of your night. I know you've got a really busy, hectic schedule, holding down the fun things at District 4. But we really appreciate you taking the time to spend a little time with our people, our viewers, and getting to know you a little bit more what's going on in the district, and we'll kind of go from there. If you want to just open up with introductions to yourself and a little bit of your background, we'll start off from here.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Worshipful. Appreciate being on. It's truly an honor to be here. More than anything else, it's just chatting with some friends and some brothers, I think, is incredibly exciting. So, as the intro said, Jairo Gomez. I love to jokingly say with a name like this, I was tortured a lot in kindergarten, but in college, it was fantastic because my professors couldn't pronounce Jairo, and so they pick on Bobby or Billy, so it worked out pretty well. But I joined Masonry in 2005. It has been just an amazing journey. I went through my line, became Worshipful Master in 2010 for Morningstar Lodge in Stockton, California, and then immediately became a district inspector, and then I've been an assistant grand lecturer for Division number 4 for the past 8 years now. So it's been a pretty long journey, but exciting one as well.
Oh, awesome. So, Worshipful, what brought you into Masonry, and who brought you in, and how did you get started?
Yeah, so it's a family affair, but not like most families you would think, where my father or my grandfather were Masons. It really came from my brother-in-law, and they had no idea about Masonry in their family. My mother-in-law is a 60-year member of Rainbow, 50-year member of Eastern Star and Amaranth, but never talked about it to my wife or to my brother-in-law. And just for some history, my brother-in-law was one of my best friends in high school, and I dated his daughter through high school, and we've been married 32 years now. But they had no idea about Masonry. It wasn't until their grandfather passed away, and he moved from California out to Kansas. And when they went out there for the funeral, it was a Masonic funeral. And my brother-in-law came back and said, I'm going to be a Mason. And my words to him were, "You don't know how to build anything. What are you talking about?" And he goes, no, it's not that type of Masonry. It's this kind of fraternal thing. And at the time, I was really looking for something to be able to give back. And I'd gone to multiple different locations. I went to Rotary, but everything really felt like it was, here's my business card, let's rub elbows. And I get enough of that at work. I just wanted somewhere I could go where I could just enjoy people and be able to give back to my community. So that's how Masonry really first started, was how do I give back to my community? I went online, I should say. I did a Google search. I was living in Stockton at the time, and did a Google search. It came up with Morningstar 19. It was actually two lodges at the time, San Joaquin and Morningstar. But Morningstar was the first one that came up. Again, great stories. I kind of looked down the roster. Worshipful Masters at the top of it, and the brother's name was Bill Hassenbuehler. Great guy, but I'm like, I can't pronounce Bill Hassenbuehler, so I'm going to look a little bit farther down the list. Oh, there's the secretary. Well, secretaries are always incredibly important, and his name was John Baker. I can pronounce John Baker, so I picked up the phone, I called John Baker, and we spent probably 2 hours on the phone just chatting and talking about what Masonry is and what this thing was about. A little information from my brother-in-law, but mostly John filled me in a lot and emailed me or mailed me a petition, and from there we just kind of jumped in with 2 feet. So that's kind of how I became a Mason, and then just like I said, just completely fell in love with it.
So he actually mailed you the petition to come in.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I never went to the building until my first degree. So I
Really?
was mailed a petition. I filled it out, sent it back with my check, and then all of a sudden, a couple months later, I get a phone call that somebody wants to come out and visit with me. Okay, sure, no problem. So Brother Cliff Wilburn came out and did my first investigation, and then Art Westerback. Both of those guys passed masters, great role models for me. They both were part of my investigation committee. Next thing you know, I got a letter in the mail that said, show up to this address and you're going to get your degree. I was completely at a loss. Okay, so I show up in a suit and tie and I go to this building. And for those of you that have never been to the Stockton building, it's not like Natoma that's a single floor. It's 4 stories for the building.
Wow.
I had no idea where I'm going. So I press the top button. I get to the top and it's completely dark. Now, I'm not going to step out there because I'm like, there's going to be hazing and, there's going to be some type of boogie, we're going to scare you, right? So I'm like looking around. Somebody comes out and says, can I help you? I said, well, I'm here for my degree. They said, oh, second floor. So, okay, I go down to the second floor. I come out once again. There's 3 lodge rooms. So do I go to the left? Do I go to the right? I was completely lost. So my first exposure to Masonry was a tough one. Not bad. It was just, I thought this was a brotherhood. I'm left kind of on my own accord. Once I got in, everybody was so kind and so gentle. Art, who did my investigation, became my coach, working with me to learn the proficiencies. He would come over to my house. He came to my son's Little League games. He was just a member of the family, and it really brought me into the fold. And he was the first guy that said, you know what, maybe you should be an officer. And at the time, I was only a fellow craft. And they said, well, why don't you sit here? And because you memorize pretty well, you can do it. So I was doing first and second degrees as a fellow craft in the junior deacon's chair.
Wow.
October, I was raised as a master mason in October. And December, I was installed as the junior deacon. And then I went through the line and became master. And, we always talk about it in a jokingly manner, but it is true. The lost master's word being no as masons. And that's one many of us have not figured out as of yet.
Well, they don't like it when you do figure it out either. So, yeah, they prefer that to be secret.
I agree, but there's still a lot of us that just don't know, and that's why you see us in 50 different concordant bodies. And what starts off as it's only one night a month turns into 45 hours a week.
It does. Well, so now I'm assuming things have probably changed in Stockton since then, since your time. Maybe inviting the candidates in for a dinner or something, or a breakfast at least, or.
Oh, absolutely. They've worked on that, but again, it was 20 years ago. I think there's been a big shift in terms of, even back then, it wasn't just a matter of kind of bringing you into the fold. It was, hey, you've got a pulse and you can fog up a mirror. Here's a petition. And we've seen this evolution in California Masonry where now guys are spending time with people before they're actually given a petition. And you have to come to a certain number of events, or you have to spend time with the brothers or help serve and do these things. We want to get to know you before you become a Mason. 20 years ago, it still was very much, wow, we need some warm bodies, come in here. Right. And it was very different. But yeah, it's completely changed. They have a group that meets on Fridays up on the 3rd floor, and they get together and they have some cocktails. They like to smoke cigars. Again, a huge building, so they're able to kind of go out on the balcony area and smoke some cigars, have a couple cocktails, and just really get to know one another and become stronger friends and brothers.
Well, and you weren't the only one of your family raised there either, right?
My children grew up in that lodge. So both of my boys, when my older son was 13, he became a demolay. And his younger brother followed him around, and he became a demolay when he turned 12. So it was so impressive to have my older son obligate my younger son into demolay. It was the sweetest thing to be able to see, and that kind of brotherhood. And then my younger son having his own journey, which has been phenomenal. And not only were they demolays when they became senior demolays, my older son became a Mason in Morningstar Lodge, and again grew up in that lodge. My younger son, by that point, we moved up to Elk Grove. My older son moved out and went into the military. My younger son was still with us, and we're living in Elk Grove now. And I said, so, are you interested? He said, yeah, I'm kind of interested in becoming a Mason. My brother is, you spend so much time doing this stuff. I said, great. I said, what lodge are you thinking? I said, you can be, member of Morning Star like your dad and your brother, or we live in Elk Grove. You could be a member of Elk Grove. There's like 12 different lodges in this area within a 20-minute drive. And he goes, well, we live in Elk Grove, and I probably will attend it more. I said, well, go to the stated meeting. And so trying to let him create his own path, because I think sometimes that happens with parents that, they're pushing their kid to be a part of this, and the kid wants to push back. So I wanted him to have his own journey, not his dad's journey through Masonry, because even us here that are on the podcast or the listening, and it's our own journey through Masonry. And so it should be yours and yours alone, and you get to choose. So he went down there. It was funny. Protective mama said, no, I'm going to take him to the first stated meeting. I said, he's 18. He can go by himself. And she said, no, I'm taking him. So they went and had dinner for the first one, came back. He went 2 more times by himself and said, Dad, I feel comfortable with this. This is the one that I want to be a member of. I said, fantastic. And so he's been a member of Elk Grove Lodge, number 173 now for 4 years. 3 years because of COVID. He unfortunately turned 18 in January of 2020, and he wasn't able to turn his petition in until February because he missed the stated meeting. March he was voted on, and end of March we were shut down. So he had to wait till 2021. So 4 years as a Mason, and he's excited. He's going to take his first officer's job this year. He's going in as a junior steward, so very exciting. Nice. Awesome. Again, his journey took him 3 years to go through that. He did the officer stuff in Demo Leg. He said, I just kind of want to sit back and do my college thing as I go along. And now he's looking to step into the line. But again, I go back to it being his journey. Let him kind of figure out which way he wants to go and what excites him. There's so many avenues. I know personally, we talked about when I first started Masonry, it was about giving back to the community. And then it became the fellowship of hanging around guys that I just really have a lot of respect and look up to. And then it just kind of evolved into esoteric side. The more I started getting into leadership roles and start learning more about some of the esoteric meanings, I really get excited about that and I really enjoy the teaching aspect of it to guys. And Noel, you've heard me talk all different things about some of the symbolism that we have in Masonry, and how do we put it into different kind of easy to understand bites, because it is so deep and so veiled that sometimes you get stuck on the peripheral sides of the degrees and don't go into it into too much depth. So I really enjoy that aspect of it, and it allows me to be kind of on both sides. I get to teach guys, but I also get to learn from other brothers what their thought process is through their journey of Masonry.
Well, and that's what we've talked about a few times is, when you see it, you hear it one way, and you kind of lock in on that, and all of a sudden you hear another brother talk about it, and you're like, I never thought about it from that angle, from that perspective. And that's one of the things I love. So when we're doing the degrees or when we're just doing practices and talking about it, getting that feedback from the other brothers is always just phenomenal, because you just get a little bit of insight, a little twist on something that it's like, and it just enlightens you a little bit more. And it's always fun.
Oh, it's like a great song. You listen to a great song, and someone can sing it, and then someone else can bring in their interpretation of it. So you're listening to a lecturer or a master do their obligation, or you watch a senior deacon. It's neat to see how they bring their, like you said, interpretation to it, or their inflection, or what word they think is important. So they might hammer it a little bit more than somebody else does when they bring it through. It's really neat. But at the end of the day, it's that fellowship that comes through. My best friend from high school finally became a Mason. We've been talking about it for many, many years. And he was so nervous. And one of my district inspectors, Scotty Christian, was the senior deacon for him. And he basically put him under his wing and said, here's what we're going to do. Here's, I'm going to walk you around. You're going to be hearing my voice all the time. And my best friend came out of that going, wow, it was just such a warm feeling knowing that this guy was taking care of me, even though I was in a very vulnerable position. Which, again, is part of what the degree is and why we dress you up in that way, is to put you in a vulnerable position to understand that somebody's there to take care of you and somebody has your back.
Well, and that's the thing. There's so much to unpack in each degree, in each little bit, in each nuance. How you're brought in, how you go through the lodge, how, your obligation, the floor work, all of it. And that's where I've enjoyed, like, our leadership retreats, where we discuss that and unpack it little bit by little bit. And then trying to bring that back to the lodge and share it with them. And, and get them to kind of go, oh, you see that aha moment in a lot of the eyes when when they're like, I never even thought about that. It's like, yep. Mm-hmm.
And you always get that 30-year Masons, 40-year Masons. I was at a meeting yesterday, and we were having some discussions, and I brought up one of the things in the third degree, and he looked at me, and this is, a 70-year-old man that's written a couple of books, has done multiple papers on Masonry. And he looked at me and goes, I never thought of that before. He goes, I'm going to write that one down. I thought, how cool. I taught this guy who's been around something that he never had from a perspective standpoint. He turned around and gave me something as well. And I was like, I hadn't realized that until he pointed that out.
Yeah, see. And that's what I love about the constant discussion. And that's why I tell a lot of the brothers, like, even if you don't want to be an officer, just getting involved and coming to the practices, you're inevitably going to learn something more. If you can show up for the OSIs, those are great too, because that's how the officers learn to teach each other and coach and where we get coached at. And I can't put into words how impactful just about every meeting is, and how it helps clarify, or you're always learning something new. And that's the fun part. And you're reiterating a lot of your lessons too. So,
and you have to do that. I'm always reminded of the motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar, and they were doing an interview with him, and he was asked, does motivational speaking work? And he goes, yes, it absolutely works. And the interviewer wanted to get him an aha, and he goes, well, if it works so well, why do people have to come back to your seminars? And Zig Ziglar didn't miss a beat. He looked at him and said, I took a shower this morning, and it worked very well. I'll probably take one tomorrow. And the lessons of Masonry are the exact same thing. You have to continually reiterate and listen to these things over and over. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to lose our way. And even very good brothers who listen to the ritual all the time still all of a sudden work themselves up and get upset about something because they forgot about their teaching. And all of a sudden you go back and you have a conversation. And, I've had to facilitate disagreements amongst brothers, and one of my favorite one was I walked in, we went in the lodge room, the guy was about to start, double bear talking about his brother, and I said, hey, I need some work. I've got a third degree that's coming up. Can you help me out real quick before we get started? I said, let's just do the obligation real quick. And we knelt at the altar, did the third degree obligation. About halfway through, you saw in his mind, he's going, I know exactly where you're going with this. And when we finished the obligation, we stood up and I said, what do you got? And he goes, I'll fix it. And it wasn't a right or wrong anymore. It was how were we going to behave with one another? And again, it's that just kind of learning process one more time that you have to hear. And we all have it. I mean, how many times have you seen, I know I've seen it multiple times, people with 80 different Masonic symbols on the back of their car doing 95 miles an hour on the highway. And you're like, that's kind of interesting, or cutting people off. And you're going, that's not our Masonic values, is it? And yet you're proudly saying you're a Mason, and you've completely forgotten the behavior. And we all do. It's not just, the person that I saw, whatever. It happens to me all the time as well. And I have to catch myself and go, hey, if I injured you, I'm sorry, my brother. I never meant that. That was, maybe I was having a bad day. I apologize. So to your point, Noel, is going back and having those degrees and listening to them over and over again is that reinforcement of, gee, this is how I should behave. This is how you should be acting with one another.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, and it's always good to go back. And we encourage brothers to go to other lodges and listen to it. Because like you said inflection on how they do the lecture. That can make or break an entire lecture. And I picked up on, I'm going to give him a little pat on the back, but Worshipful Morrison. I love when he's doing a lot of the lectures, because the way he presents, the way his inflection, the tone. I've actually picked up so many extra little things. I'm going, I've heard it 100 times. It never really sank in. And then he just says it a different way, and all of a sudden I'm going, and you just kind of chuckle. It's just like, oh God, like I should have known this the whole time.
Man, we are so blessed. You're right. Scott is a phenomenal ritualist that's out there. If you've never heard Ed Caballero give a third degree lecture full form, he does a phenomenal one as well. Eric Johnson out of Ione Lodge, he is just a spectacular ritualist. And if you ever get a chance, buy him dinner at the lodge and have him come sing the perambulation in the third degree. He's a musician, and I've only seen it done twice. Vince Farrell out of Union Tehama used to do it. Doesn't do it as much anymore. But he did the third degree perambulation for my younger son Gabriel and actually sang it, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it, but we've never actually seen it, done. That would be an interesting little spin to it. So
Yeah. Don't ask me to do it. It's even from a karaoke standpoint, it's pretty bad. But no, he's a musician. I believe he's a UOP graduate, or it's his son that's a UOP graduate. But they're both musicians and just a fantastic singer. And to hear a perambulation instead of just kind of talking through it, but you hear it as a song is phenomenal.
Wow.
they're gonna have to start putting that on the invites when he's coming in. So
Just not too much because they'll want to put it on my expense report.
I'll take care of the dinner. So.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So now, you talked about you becoming master of the lodge, and now you're currently the AGL for our district. What was the transition there from master to AGL? What was the path there?
So again, from a jurisdictional standpoint, the way that California is broken up is that you have your individual lodges, and then each lodge is put within a district. That district has about 3 to 5 lodges within that district, and a district inspector oversees those particular lodges. I always say they try to be a mentor, a teacher, just making sure that guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing and not, misbehaving either financially, fiscally, or ritually in terms of what they're doing. So the district inspector oversees a district of 3 to 5 lodges. Then the state is divided into 10 different divisions, and each division has an assistant grand lecturer that oversees that division. So within that division, there's anywhere between 8 to 12, 13 districts within there. So an assistant grand lecturer is overseeing not only the district inspectors, but he'll oversee somewhere around 40 lodges or so that he goes to see. And again, so keeps an assistant grand lecturer very busy. The 10 assistant grand lecturers the 10 assistant grand lecturers along with the grand lecturer form the ritual committee in the state of California. Now, we don't change ritual. The only one that can change ritual is Grand Lodge when we meet at annual communication through a piece of legislation that is written. But we get together and make sure that we are interpreting it, and sometimes it doesn't become a game of telephone where somebody says something, and by the time it gets to the next person and the third, all of a sudden it's completely changed, and then that was the ritual. And then you come in and go, wait a minute, what are you doing? Oh, that's our ritual. No, that's not ritual. That might have been a local condition that applied to you because your lodge is a certain shape or something to that effect. So that became ritual when it was just kind of a local condition. So by having the ritual committee making sure the interpretations are exactly the same, the AGL then does schools of instructions for his district inspectors, who then do schools of instructions for the lodge officers. So again, it gets passed down, and the ultimate goal, like my schools of instructions, I will have officers, coaches, and officers who want to attend come to it. And the goal is that when they are listening to this, they're going, boy, that sounds just like what my inspector said. It should be identical from that standpoint. Because if it's something different, I've seen them put their hands up and go, oh, I heard it this way. Can you clarify that? And then we'll have a kind of a conversation, say, yeah, this is the way we have it from there. So that's kind of the breakdown. I was, again, master in 2010. And as I came out of the East, the gentleman who was assistant grand lecturer at the time, Dave Almuth, he came to the lodge. Dave, amazing human being, another wonderful man. He looked at me and goes, you ever thought about becoming a district inspector? And again, let's go back to that lost master's word. I said, I guess, sure. So the next thing you know, I was at what they call the Inspectors Development Academy. It's kind of like a boot camp for new inspectors to learn administrative, ritual, all those type of things. And I became an inspector in 2011. 2011, I then was 7 years as a district inspector. And the gentleman who was the assistant grand lecturer at the time was elevated to grand lecturer. And I was appointed to the assistant grand lecturer position.
Wow.
Wow.
So you didn't waste any time or take a break, did you? You just jumped right in.
And in between there was some other wonderful things. With my boys being in DeMolay, I did a lot of work with DeMolay, and my very first actual, we'll call it concordant appendant body, was actually Rainbow for Girls. I just become a Master Mason, 2 boys, no daughters, and again, John Baker, who was on the board of Rainbow, came in and said, would you like to be on the board of Rainbow? And, I've served on many a nonprofit, so I'm thinking, yeah, no big deal, right? I'll be on a board. Not realizing that it was a teenage youth order, for girls that are, 11 to 20. And next thing you know, I've got 12 teenage girls in my house. I'm like, what the heck just happened here? My older son met his future wife through Rainbow, so it's a blessing from that standpoint. But yeah, I did a lot with Rainbow, DeMolay. I also was two-time worthy patron for the Order of Eastern Star. So I served in the East with them a couple times, which was phenomenal as well to see kind of the ritual and how that comes together. Became York Rite member, Scottish Rite member, also Shrine. So I was heavily involved in Shrine, and I still do help out with Shrine as much as I possibly can. Served as potentate in 2020 as well. So in between there, it was juggling, 5 or 6 different things. And again, learning to say no was not in the vocabulary, but wow. I've enjoyed the journey every step of the way.
I'm starting to wonder if COVID might have something to do with you. God just said, take a break, like slow down.
Boy, that was the greatest conversation ever. When they said, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I was like, oh, thank God, I'm gonna catch a breath. Because the last event that I had, I flew down to Los Angeles. One of my dear friends went in as potentate at the same time for the Al Malika Shrine Temple, which is the one out of L.A., and just a phenomenal human being, Seb Bedoyan. And so I went down, he came up to my dinner, my gala, so I went to his gala. And as we came back, they had shut everything down. And so we went, oh, this is good. We've been traveling for 2.5 straight months of just every single night, 2 or 3 events during the weekends. This is nice to be able to take a break, and 2 weeks turned into, a year plus.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was interesting time for sure.
Yeah, we had to change a lot around, obviously, for, how can we meet? How could we pay bills? Because we could not get together. And that's always very difficult. Our brothers wanted to hang out. They needed each other. But at the same time, we were that perfect demographic of if somebody catches COVID, we're very close. We're very handsy and hugsy and all that kind of fun stuff. And we are an older demographic, which is the one that was really being hurt by COVID. So it was a tough decision to say we couldn't meet. And our Grandmaster made that decision. And as potentate, I continued with the decision because it was the right thing to do. It was tough because, you spend all these years to be elevated to the leadership position, and now you just kind of sit on a Zoom or a WebEx or Facebook Live to try to, maintain a bond with your brothers and say, we're still here for you. We still care about you. We just can't, go into your home anymore or meet down at the temple or the lodge.
No, it was a tough time. And I remember a lot of, there was a lot of mixed feelings on that whole situation. And, did I like it? No. Did I agree with it? Yeah. I got to protect our brothers, right? Our families and everything like that. And if I was put in that position, that's the decision I would have made. You're going to put all that on me? Yeah, I'm going to lean in towards caution and protect everybody, or all that I can at least. So
that's exactly the case. And that's our first thing to do as leaders of an organization, is to make sure that we're taking care of everybody, that they're going to be safe, that they're in a good environment. We don't want you to be in an area that's not safe coming out at 9, 10 o'clock at night after a degree. It can be kind of scary. And you want to make sure that your brothers are taken care of.
Yeah, I remember during that time when we started using Zoom, and it was like just to see my brothers just on the monitor. It was just like, all right, it was just great to see them. Just for the short amount of time that I could see them, even though we couldn't, hug and shake hands and stuff like that. It's just, hey, at least it was some sort of contact. And we can see everybody all at once and not just, each other just one at a time on the phone. At least it was something. It was better than nothing. So.
Well, and shout out to the technology. They made it so easy that, again, a demographic of Masons that was an older demographic was able to get onto Zoom. It was a kind of a click and turn on, and they were able to use it. That's huge for many of these guys that were like, what are you talking about, apps or different studios or these things that you can go into?
There are, let's be honest, it wasn't that easy for all of them, though, because there was some entertaining Zoom meetings with I can't get my camera on. It's like, I can't. Nobody can hear me. We can hear you.
We had some brothers that forgot to put their pants on, and that made it kind of entertaining when the camera came on.
Yeah, it made for some funny memories. That's for sure.
I really did. It really did.
Don't get me wrong. I don't miss it, but it was But it also taught me a whole new level of patience. When you got a dozen plus, sometimes more on a call, all trying to want to talk at one time. You just sit back there kind of watching it unfold.
Even the Pledge of Allegiance made it rather interesting when
Yeah.
everybody's kind of coming in and moving around. It was rather interesting because you're right. Everybody was coming off to different spots, and it just made it a very interesting pledge, to say the least.
Or inevitably, you always get that one brother that froze. Right? The camera would lock up, and he's just standing there the whole time and hand across the heart, and we're like, hey, you can stop now. Yeah. But, and you were potentate during that time, which was,
Yes.
I know, I remember that time distinctly. And that was a bummer because I know you had a lot of fun things planned for that year and got cut short. But I think we still had a pretty good, 3-month run before it.
We did incredibly well. The gala was such a fun event. I mean, we just partied the night. It was such a great time. Yeah, I know you remember. It was a very good time.
It was.
And you know what? We still were able to raise. I mean, only 2 months into it, we still raised a total of $25,000. So we did fairly well. We were able to buy a new van for the Shrine Transportation Fund. So we still did some really good work that I was very proud of. And again, the most important thing that we walked away with is we try to keep everybody as safe as possible. We lost a few brothers because of COVID. But again, it's one of those when, if you're the captain of the ship and the storm's coming in, what you want to make sure is, not that the shows or the dinners are good, but the boat's staying upright.
Yep.
And, you're not taking on water. Yeah. And that's really what I'm most proud of as potentate that I was able to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I know. Another tough decision, but fully supported and totally makes sense. So,
but it is neat to see some of the evolution. We were talking a little bit about kind of keystone projects and some of the things that are coming down the pipeline. And I think what's really exciting is we're starting to try to kind of evolve the stated meeting. We constantly are polling our brothers to say, at least in the state of California, we're constantly polling our brothers to say, what do you like? What do you not like? And what always comes back is we didn't join Masonry to pay bills and listen to meeting minutes. We wanted to learn more about Masonry, more of the esoteric work that's in there. So we're kind of bringing down the pipeline a kind of a condensed version of the stated meeting where things can be sent out beforehand. Lodges don't have to do this. If they still want to sit through and listen to the secretary read minutes and that's what's exciting to them, great. But we're talking about a consent agenda that's going to allow really everything to be bundled into one. You stand up and say, I move that the consent agenda be accepted, and you're done with paying the bills. So now you can move on to things like, let's talk about some of the esoteric meanings, or how do you think this applies to you in today's world? So it's really really kind of cool how that is moving and kind of evolving from that standpoint.
And we try to implement some of those changes, and little by little we just keep tweaking on things, and we started doing that with the emailing of the minutes, and it was with telling the brothers, hey, if you want to hear it, one brother just has to say, hey, I want to hear the minutes, and so far it's been going pretty well. The email they go out, they get if there's an edit or anything that needs to be done, it's done, and we come to meeting and we do that there. Or during the dinners, we do a lot of our updates because, as we all know, our wives are usually much better at pulling out the calendars than we are. So, when we're talking about events and things like that, we like to do that during the dinner. And that, we're not doing one less thing in the lodge room. So we could either focus on, a little bit more training or just, getting out, just having a little bit of our time back to ourselves too. So we did it a couple times during my year, throughout my year, is we had little get-togethers after. And we would, like, if you wanted to stay, you could stay. If you want to go home, you can go home. And we have different discussions, talked about the rods and the jewels and things like that. So,
well, I think you brought up a really, really good point, which is getting out. Masons were always out in the community. The building was there to get stuff done, but you were always back out again in the community doing things. And I think we lost that for many, many, many years. And everybody would just kind of go to the building, lock ourselves in there, and then leave and then go home. And there was nothing that was done back out per se in the community. And again, we're starting to see a massive shift on that. And we see it at the local level. We're seeing it at the jurisdictional level. We don't pat ourselves on the back enough for the work that we as Masons do. You know, we've got a Distressed Worthy Brother Fund, which happened after the fires up in Paradise. That's got a significant amount of money. So if somebody, you know, if there's a fire that happens or an earthquake that occurs, or there's a fund that's set aside for those brothers that maybe need some assistance. As a jurisdiction, we've raised over $5 million for children's literacy. We're in almost all of the bottom 25 percentile performing schools in the state of California. So again, we raise money to be able to buy books, and the teachers teach how to involve the parents along with the kids for children literacy. There was a stat that when Raise a Reader came out and talked to us that was shocking to me, is that they build jails based upon third grade children literacy. So if a child gets to third grade and they're not at reading comprehensive, they're building jails based upon that. I mean, that's kind of a scary thought. So the fact that we've done $5 million there, the fact that we've done $2 million for Major League Baseball with our Masons for Mitts programs that we have out there, that's phenomenal. We are with every single major league organization in California except the Oakland A's. Not because we don't like the Oakland A's, they just don't have a foundation. So we have the Dodgers, the Angels, the Padres, the Giants that we all donate to and raise money so that we can buy leather gloves for the kids that have a square and compass on it. We have obviously 2 Masonic homes now where we take care of our brothers that are in need as they're older and maybe can't take care of themselves. So those are fully funded to make sure. That's all at the jurisdictional level. We start looking at the local lodge levels. I've seen lodges that buy bicycles with helmets for kids. You know, if you read X amount of books, here's a free bicycle. I've seen the Masonic Care Bears is starting to kind of spread around a little bit more, which is a teddy bear that has a sweater on it with a square and compass, and the lodges give them either to police or fire, you know, first responders. Mm-hmm. So when there's an emergency and there's a child that's there, you know, their house just burned down or something happened, the firefighter can go back to the rig, pull out this teddy bear and give it to this child. And I actually spoke to a 21-year-old young lady who still has her teddy bear. She's in college now, and she remembers that the firefighter gave her this teddy bear that had a Masonic square and compass. No clue about Masonry or what it was, but she had that teddy bear. And as we were talking about that program, she's like, oh my God, I still have mine. I mean, those are incredibly impactful that we're doing at the Blue Lodge level. And then you add onto their Scottish Rite Language Centers, Shrine Hospitals, the Knights Templars Eye Foundation, the Eastern Stars, Dogs for Diabetes. These are all done by the same guys. It's not like it's a separate, you know, well, here's Kiwanis and here's... These are all Masons that are maybe part of another organization that decided we want to continue to do more philanthropy. And so many people don't realize that, you know, look at the work that we do across the board locally in, let's say, Folsom or in Stockton or Sacramento or, you know, wherever the lodge is at, or as a state of California, what are we doing as well? And it's phenomenal work. And we should be telling people that, you know, not as a, you know, egotistical, you know, we're overly proud, but you know what? People need to know the work that you do. Maybe they, you know, are interested in that. You know, again, that's kind of what interested me in Masonry when it first started off. And to hear these things, I was like, yeah, this is really what I want to be a part of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, like you said, all the little things that we could do out of community, it doesn't hurt to let people know who we are. I mean, the Square and Compass, when we did some of our community events, I kind of laughed and was a little sad at the same time. Some of the responses I got when people saw the Square and Compass and they're like, oh, you guys are real? I'm kind of like, yeah, no, we're not trying to take over the world. And, you know, we do have our little secret meetings, but yeah, it's just mostly because nobody wants to know how we're doing our bills. Yeah. You know, but it made for good conversations. But some of my prouder moments, like this last parade, when we were going through for the Veterans Day parade, that was a lot of fun because I was walking to the front with Worshipful Kevin Williams holding the banner. We were walking. And I had people yelling, you know, thank you for what you guys do. Thank you for all what you've done in the community. And I was just like, that really touched my heart. I was like, because, you know, we try to help. You don't always hear about the effects, and you don't always see the effects. But it's nice to know that we're actually making an impact.
You know, those like you said, those are the ones that really are near and dear. I know when I was Worshipful Master at Stockton, the firefighters of Stockton came to us, and it was during the housing crash. And, you know, Stockton was the epicenter of the housing market crash. So the community was really with no funds whatsoever because the revenue was down significantly. Well, the fire department came to us and said, before this happened, we were able to buy a new rig, but we don't have a thermal imaging camera. And you guys were the first ones to buy a thermal imaging camera. Would you be willing to buy one for us? And we said, absolutely. And so we purchased a thermal imaging camera. No, we had the check for it. They gave us the amount. We went down to City Hall during one of the meetings and, got up and said, Madam Mayor, the Masons have always been called upon, and when called upon, have been there to support the community of Stockton. You've called upon us one more time, and here we are with the check. And the room was just like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. What are you guys doing? And we're seeing more and more of it. We were at a 75-year event in Orinda this last weekend, and the mayor of Orinda showed up. One of the Congress people, not state, but federal Congress people, was there and talked about Masonry and what we've done in the community. And it was really neat to see them, pay homage to us and what we have done and have done it for so many years. If you think about how many organizations, and I'm just going to use the state of California, have been around for 175 years, let alone in the state of California.
Right.
We are older than the state of California when we first started, charting the Grand Lodge of California. So we are older than the state. How many businesses do you see that have done that? How many other local organizations? How many other, even church groups from that standpoint? There are churches that are going to be older than us, but there's not very many that said we've done this for so many years, year after year, doing good work in our community, bringing fellowship amongst one another and trying to create harmony amongst the people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and being part of one of the oldest fraternities, when I first joined, I knew I wanted to help and I wanted to give back and I wanted the camaraderie a lot. My grandfather was a Mason. I knew he was a good man. I wanted to see what obviously this had impacted him. Never realized just how much it was going to impact me and how much I was actually going to learn from it. So it's just been an exciting journey overall.
I wouldn't change it for the world. And I do a lot. And, there's a lot of work that goes along with it. And hey, I was on a cruise last week and 3 of the days I was, darn that Elon Musk, because that Starlink system works really well. So even though I was in the Gulf, I still had a strong signal. So I was still taking phone calls and on some WebEx meetings that I had to do for Masonry. But it's not a chore. It's not a chore because I get to, even during difficult times, I get to go back to guys that I get to hang out with, that I love to see and that I'm passionate about. And where I'm at right now in Masonry, I used to walk into the lodge and go, boy, there's just a bunch of old guys here. And now I walk in, I go, who are these kids? As you kind of see that evolution. And I have been so blessed to stand on the shoulders of great men, and the laundry list goes on from Dave Alma to John Knox to it just keeps kind of going on. And now it's my duty to allow the next generation of leaders to stand on my shoulders and elevate us even more. And so it's a really great feeling to be a part of this organization.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting. You talk about the next generation because we're seeing an uptick, right? I mean, we finally saw growth in Masonry for the first time in how many years was it?
50 years.
50 years, right? I mean, and we're seeing, and we're starting to see a lot more. We've got a lot of young men coming into the lodge lately. And, of course, we always ask, like, well, what are you interested in, right? And I'm always waiting to hear, like, hey, I watched National Treasure. I thought that was cool or something. Yeah, well, I just did it myself. But still. But, something like that, right? But no, these guys they're looking for the same thing that we were looking for, that camaraderie, the giving back to the community. I can't tell you how many have told, I just want to give back to the community. I want to help the community. And it's like, that's amazing. That's great. And it's like, and guess what? We're pretty good at doing that. So.
And I was going to say, as a lodge, what you have to do is be able to fill that void of what they're looking for. That's what's so important. And not be scared to let other lodges partake, because as you know, there's lodge cultures and every lodge is very different. I've got 4 lodges that meet at the J Street Temple in downtown Sacramento. Different nights they meet, great group of guys, but they're different cultures. All of them are very different cultures in terms of how they run their lodge, what they want to do in terms of philanthropy, or are they more, more of a social. Some are going to be more esoteric. They want to spend more time, digging deeper into the meanings of fill in the blank, right? They want to spend time doing that. So what we have to be able to identify, and that's why we're having more and more lodges, which I think is phenomenal as well, is that you might not be the right fit. That person might be a really good Mason. You go, man, that guy is going to be a great Mason. He's just not a good fit for our lodge. Not that it's bad. It's just he's looking for something different. And why try to take a square peg and try to put him into a round hole? It's not going to fit, right?
Absolutely.
Let's find him a lodge that's going to make it work from that standpoint.
No, that's part of our, in our welcoming when we're talking to these candidates who come in, the prospects coming in. I tell them that all the time. I'm like, hey, listen, each lodge has its own personality. We all do the same ritual, but everybody they've got a little bit of a different culture in each one. And I'm like, and our lodge might not be the better one. If you like it and want to keep going back, please do. But if you didn't quite feel right there, go check out another lodge.
Yes.
And they're all in the area, and yeah.
Well, I think what's exciting too is not only are we creating more lodges, but I think what's exciting too is that we're creating what we're calling affinity lodges. So lodges where, people that have same interests are joining. And it used to be that way. I mean, if you look at some of the lodges, it was like that was the Railroad Lodge. That was the PG&E Lodge. This was the CHP Lodge. And so there was already kind of an affinity there. And then it kind of evolved into this geographical. Well, I live in X community, so that's the lodge that I'm going to go to versus a kind of a one where I feel like it's going to be what I like to do. And we're starting to see that more. I just joined a new lodge that we meet quarterly in Southern California. It's a Disney lodge. We're all Disney fanatics. Our name badges look like cast members, name badges because we like Disney and we're all fans of it. And so every meeting we go, we try to get our business done as quickly as possible, and then we're all off to the park to go hang out with one another.
Where do I sign up? Where do I sign up?
I can get you a petition on that one. It's like I said, it's a blast. This coming up meeting, once we're done with our meeting, we're going to head over to Medieval Times and do a dinner and show over there with the jousting. But we also have a group that's magicians. So before you can join, you have to actually do a magic trick before you're actually allowed to fill out a petition for affiliation, because that's what they like to do. There's now hiking and running lodges that are big outdoors people. So we're seeing this kind of evolution once again in Masonry of, at least in California, more lodges that are smaller where we get to know each other to build bigger bonds. The cathedral Masonry of old where you had 300 memberships, boy, that was a tough way to get to know your brothers. I mean, it really was. We see 30 guys, we know 30 guys. And then all of a sudden, what do I do with the other 270? How do I get to know them? Now they're feeling left out because they're kind of one of the outliers, like I talked about earlier on with being let into the building and there was nobody there to warmly greet me. If I don't feel that, I get out of the habit. I'm out of the habit. I stop coming back. So having these smaller lodges that are more kind of centric to whatever it is that you enjoy doing, I think is a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and we happen to come from one of the, decent-sized lodges, but that was Brother Jeff Joe presented this idea for the podcast, and that was kind of our way of reaching out to, our brothers that are remote and everything like that. So trying different ways to get a hold of people, to make contact, to make those connections still. Even though we might not be able to see each other one-on-one, we can still keep apprised and still keep updated what's going on.
This is phenomenal to be able to do that, because we get guys that'll move across the country, across the globe, and maybe they feel disconnected, but hey, this is a way for this to happen. What I would say to you is make sure that we're sharing it. I'm the first one to kind of cite sources, but my middle name is cut and paste, because guys have great ideas, and I love to use their ideas. We implemented just recently at my lodge at Scottish Rite and at Shrine an Uber account for brothers who didn't want to drive at night and are too proud to ask for a ride. We seeded a couple hundred bucks in there. So if a brother says, hey, I want to come to lodge, but I don't want to be a burden and ask somebody for a ride. Hey, let's do some training. Here's how you go on your phone and order the Uber, and you can come to lodge now all on your own. You don't have to do that. And again, it's been a big hit. People have really liked that aspect of it, but keeping people involved, saying you're still part of our group, because you know how our brothers are. Hey, I'll come pick you up. No, I don't want that to happen.
Yep.
But, this was a way to kind of keep them involved.
Well, we did that, with our sweethearts luncheon and everything too. So, wives that didn't want to feel like a burden, like, no, this is like the whole point is to celebrate you. So allow us to do this. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, that's a good. We've used the smoke detectors as a way to get in with our ladies, where we change their batteries. So it's a way for us to go out twice a year, because you're supposed to change your batteries in your smoke detectors at least twice a year. Hey, we don't want you climbing up on a ladder up there. We're going to take care of this for you. Here's a couple batteries. And then that way, again, you're in their house and say, do you need any help? Is there anything that you need? And you can be there for them.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Yeah.
Hey, like I said,
might give me something to do after my year's up.
Food for thought, definitely.
Well, again, that's where sitting down with these things are phenomenal, because there's some very smart men that are in Masonry. We can learn from one another. And I think we all have some great ideas. And just how do we take those ideas and spread them throughout the jurisdiction?
Well, I think that's one thing I've always appreciated about Masonry, Grand Lodge in general is, I always hear this in business. They're always talking about, well, we want to hear back from you. They don't really want to hear back from us. They just want to hear us. We're going to comply and make them money. But in Freemasonry, the feedback is taken in, and it is, different ideas are coming. I've seen so many things change in my short time because of the feedback from the brothers. I mean, the Maximum Orders retreats, there was development throughout each one of those. And to me, each one just got better and better. And it was, I got excited about each one. I was like, okay, every time I come out learning something new, it's not like same old, same old.
Well, as a facilitator, I appreciate that. I mean, you didn't fall asleep in my class, so that's kind of cool from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a big deal. And I do want to go back to your point, though, when we talk about Grand Lodge. And you've heard me talk about it a lot, but I love to reinforce it. So many people just assume in California, the guys with those gold collars and the fancy aprons, that's Grand Lodge. And that's not how it's set up. It really is set up like the Electoral College, really, when you take a look at it. Because it's not a popular vote. Not every Mason goes to Grand Lodge to vote. To be a member of Grand Lodge, you're either the master, the senior warden, the junior warden, or one past master's vote. So every lodge in the state of California gets 4 votes, whether you've got 30 members or 300 members. Yeah. Whether you're traveling 2 minutes because your lodge is in San Francisco, or you're traveling 7 hours because you're coming from Tehachapi. Everybody's got the same representation to go in. And legislation is written by the brothers. Yeah. It's not coming from the Grand Lodge. If you believe that, that's our new sign, well, I think it's more bunting than it really is a degree sign. But if you were passionate about that, I could submit legislation with 2 other past masters to say that's what I want the sign to be. It'll probably fail in a heartbeat, but you get to put that forward and set the terms of what Grand Lodge and the direction that Grand Lodge is going to go. So anytime I hear somebody say, "Oh, I can't believe Grand Lodge is doing," what I say is, hold up a mirror, because you're Grand Lodge. Right. You're the ones that are able to vote. So I appreciate you saying that with the changes to try to make it better. But it's not because Grand Lodge is listening to you. It's because you are Grand Lodge, and you are part of that, and you are a voting delegate of Grand Lodge.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're coming up pretty much on the hour at this point. Yeah. I again, very much appreciate the time you took out. And please also thank Stacy as well, because I know every time you're doing something for the lodge or Masons in general, sometimes that takes you away from her, even though I appreciate the fact that she's always around with you. So
it's a family event for us. It's always been a family event. We travel together, and even many times with our boys, we were going to different things that were out there. And as we talked about earlier, you let me go, I'll suck the oxygen out of the room. So yeah, going an hour is kind of simple to chat, but I think a lot of it is, again, just the friendship and having these conversations. I've watched you grow in Masonry, and it's kind of neat. I'm still not at the Walker stage yet, but definitely starting to see myself as more of a senior and a mentor, and it's really neat to see you stepping into that role now and bringing your leadership skills to the table. So super exciting.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, and I often like to reflect back and tell, my first introduction to you was my raising. And you were sitting in the northeast corner, nice duds on. And of course you had the gold badge and, and the bling out, right? And I'm sitting there, what's this? Who's this? Everybody, oh, it's the AGL, it's the AGL. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the AGL. I don't even know what AGL means. But yeah, no, I mean, you were so welcoming. And, and then, of course, the next day I joined Shrine, became a Shriner. We had a great time, had a blast. And, and you and I were talking about it. I want to say it was a couple days later or maybe a week later or whatever. And we were just talking about, the different things and time and place and having fun. And sometimes we got to just be sturdy and form and push forward. And other times we get to let our hair down. No pun intended.
The 24-inch gauge.
Yep,
24-inch gauge.
And capitalizing on that 24-inch gauge. And so that's what I remember in the last Warden's retreat, they were asking about the tools. And it's funny you said that because you were leading me right into it. And they asked what our favorite instrument is. And mine was the 24-inch gauge. Because it's just about how you deviate your time throughout everything, because there's so much going on, and anybody that's been in Masonry knows if you allow it, Masonry will take up every little bit of that gauge, but you can break it up.
That's right. That's right. And again, I appreciate those kind words. It's fantastic. I don't see myself as, the Grand Lodge officer, because at the end of the day, it's at some point, we give back our working tools to somebody else, to the next year's leader, or the next 5 years or however long that person goes from a leadership standpoint. So at some point it always goes, and I always keep myself in due bounds by sitting in the north. So if you ever see me, I'm always in the north part of the building. As you know, the north is the dark part, and I always tell myself I'm not the brightest bulb, so I'm going to sit over here. So if you've ever wondered why I'm always sitting over there, that's why I sit in that particular chair.
Well, that's good to know. But I did promise my brothers coming back that I was going to sit in the south and be the entertainment value, because I just can't wait to be like, that's not how we did it in mine.
That's the best part of being a past, whatever it is, past master, past potentate, past whatever. Yeah. That's the best. You just fold your arms like the guys from the Muppets that were up in the balconies, the two old guys up there that just gripe. That's the perfect past.
One of my stipulations for wanting to join, to join Roseville Lodge, they got that little balcony up there. I'm like, if I could sit up there, and just be like, the whole time, I was like, I'd be in. Here's my dues. Just here, take my money. Like, I'm in. So
that's phenomenal. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I super appreciate being a part of this.
Yeah, no, and much appreciated the time too, Worshipful. And, we will probably circle back. Now, you said this is your what year? 8th year? AGL?
My 8th year. Yep.
Wow. And you only get, is there a limit?
9.
9 years.
If you're reappointed. Reappointed.
Well, yeah, you're going to get reappointed. If not,
right. You never know. We serve at the will and pleasure of the Grand Master.
Well, we'll probably have to circle back with you again and check in at least one more time.
That'd be fantastic. It'd be an honor.
Thank you, Worshipful. You have a good evening. And again, tell the family hi for us, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Worshipful. Appreciate your time. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We look forward to seeing you again, and hopefully we'll have another episode here shortly. So,
and just a final reminder that on December 11th at 6 p.m., Morningstar Lodge does have an inter-apprentice degree going on. And they have a fellowcraft degree on January 10th at 1 p.m. as well. So those are some of the upcoming degrees in the area. And then for our brother at Natoma 64, Jonathan Godbout, I should probably have that on top ready to go. What did we decide on? January 29th, correct?
Yes.
Yes, January 29th, 7 p.m. will be our brother Jonathan Godbout getting raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason. So please come and join us if you can. Sideliners are more than welcome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. And we hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving and happy holidays. Thank you so much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.